90.3 WMSC, Upper Montclair.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to 90.3 WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. This is New Jersey's Choice 2020, and I am one of your hosts, AJ Melillo.
And of course, I'm the other host, Louis Biondolillo.
And Louis, today we have a very special guest. We have the candidate for the Republican Party running in New Jersey's 11th district, Miss Rosemary Becchi. Miss Becchi, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you both. I'm very excited to be here today.
And Louis, an exciting news for us. This interview is going to be available on WMC's YouTube page, our SoundCloud to listen later, and of course, it's going to be playing live on air today. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm very excited that now we have the audio and the video as well.
Exactly. So why don't we jump right into this interview with you, Miss Becchi? So you're running in New Jersey's 11th district, which happens to be Montclair State's home district. So we're excited to have you on for that. So I want you to tell the voters a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for Congress.
Sure, happy to. So I am a wife, a mother of three teenage daughters, and I'm also a tax lawyer, and I've been fighting my entire career for lower taxes and less regulation. I did start an organization several years ago called Jersey First. And what Jersey First did was to advocate for lower taxes and less spending. So we did that by raising money and giving it away to local candidates. And then we helped the local candidates in their races by helping them with grassroots efforts. But I've seen the difference that good policy makes in the lives of families. And I'll tell you a story about myself. When I was in college, I actually went to go pay for my lunch one day, and the attendant told me that I needed to go to student accounts. And when I got to student accounts, I had learned that my parents had fallen on some really hard times and weren't able to pay my tuition or help me with school. And so I was faced with the situation where I leaped into action, and I was fortunate enough to find the grants and the loans and the jobs to stay in school. But I also borrowed over $100,000 for my education. And that experience stayed with me so much so that later in life, when I worked in the US Senate and I had the opportunity to co-author the 529 college savings plans, I poured my heart and soul into it because I really knew the difference that legislation like that could make in the lives of families. If families could save on a week by week, regular basis, they could be prepared for their children's future. And I know I did it for my daughters. Every paycheck, I would put in a little bit of money into that savings account. And I was very excited that my oldest just went off to college, and I finally got to use the 529 college savings plans. But that's why I want to go to Washington, because I really want to work for New Jersey families. You know, I want to put the people of this district above the politics. And to me, that is what is missing right now. My opponent has been lockstep with the party, and she votes for her party. She doesn't vote for the people of this district. And so that's why I want to go to Washington. She's voted with Nancy Pelosi 99% of the time. So she's just a rubber stamp for the other party. And that's not what I'm about.
So speaking of your opponent, Mikey Sherrill, as she is seemingly popular as a congresswoman, what do you believe differently for Mikey Sherrill policy-wise in order to win this election?
So again, I think the difference is in putting the people first above the politics. I really do. I mean, you have to be there and be an advocate for the people. And you've also got to work in a bipartisan and a bicameral way. I will tell you, when I wrote the 529 college savings plans, it took many years to get those accounts to where they are today, and they continue to evolve. And it's because it's truly done on a bipartisan way and a bicameral way. And that's what's missing. And that's what my opponent is missing, Mikey Sherrill. You know, again, voted with Nancy Pelosi 99% of the time. You know, and one of her primary issues that she said she was going to go there and work on was raising the SALT cap. And she never reached across the aisle or reached across the Capitol to have a conversation about how you raise the cap. And that's what needed to happen. And that's why I am different.
Absolutely. And speaking about those bipartisan issues, I think one of the biggest issues in our country right now that needs bipartisan solutions is what's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement and the protests that have devolved into riots. But so in that issue, what is your way to address that issue where you have some people in the population calling to defund the police, others calling for more funding of the police, but really what it comes down to is there needs to be some solutions to this issue. So how would you address that issue in Congress?
Absolutely. And we have to do better in this country. We absolutely do. And we do have to fund our police and support our police. You know, in my life, I actually ran an organization and was very involved in a program that helped disadvantaged youth. And, you know, we got those kids involved in community service, and we provided mentorship and internships, and many of those children and kids have gone on to be very successful. And so I do believe that you can, you know, protest but we need to do it peacefully, but that you need to take the next step and take action. And we have to, in this country, do better. But doing better doesn't mean defunding the police. In fact, it means absolutely the opposite. It means supporting our police and empowering them to help others. And so that's what I think needs to happen here.
The president has obviously condemned these riots numerous times in person, speaking, and especially over his Twitter account. And some of the things that you're saying line up with his belief that we should be having peaceful protests instead of rioting, and we should not defund the police. Where do you stand on supporting the president being as as divisive as he is for this country? There's people that love him. There's people that hate him. Where do you stand on that?
I do support the president, and I do think that it's very important in this election to look at the issues. When you look at what matters most to this district and what's important, then you line up behind the president. If you know, first and foremost, we need to get this economy going. And you cannot dispute this president's track record on the economy. We have got to get people back to work and the economy going again. And the second thing is that we need to make sure that people are safe and secure. That is absolutely important. And it does mean supporting our police, as like we just talked about. And the third area that I actually think is critical in this election is not to forget those that are most vulnerable. I will tell you another story about myself. I have a daughter that was born with her esophagus not connected to her stomach. And she's had a lifetime of health and education issues. And as I just shared with you guys, she just went off to college. And throughout her lifetime, I've been an advocate for her, but she's also what I call the comeback kid, and she's been an advocate for herself. And I think that throughout this pandemic, it's reminded us that we have to protect those that are the most vulnerable. We have to get our kids back into school in a safe way. One-dimensional learning doesn't work for everyone. When she was younger and she couldn't talk, I used to lay on the floor with those little people, cows and animals, and I used to hold it and put her hand on it, and she would watch me speak. And kids need that, and they need their teachers, and they need to be in school. And to me, that's something that's very important in this election and that we've got to be advocates for.
Thank you. So you mentioned at the beginning of that answer that you wanted to pretty much reopen the economy and get people back to work. Does that mean that you disapprove of Governor Phil Murphy's decisions when it comes to the pandemic?
I do disagree, and here's why I disagree. I think that there needs to be a plan in place, and I think that there needs to be metrics and data about reopening the state. I am all for safety and protecting people, but at the same time, I think that you have to give people a plan, and so that they can plan, right? Like, you're going to tell businesses and small and restaurants that they can open, and so they order all that food and they plan, and then suddenly you take it away, and there's no rhyme or reason to it, and so that's what I think that is missing in all of this debate here in the state.
Ms. Becchi, I just want to say before I ask the next question that the story about your daughter and the story you told earlier about yourself in college are two of my favorite stories to hear from a candidate. They're really beautiful stories, and I just really appreciate you sharing that with us today. But my next question also has to do somewhat with Phil Murphy's plans post the pandemic and with this election. As we all know, especially in New Jersey, it's going to be majority vote by mail, if not all vote by mail this time around. And I know on your website you have a tab that you can, register to vote by mail and how to do it and things like that. So with this election, do you want people to, if possible, vote in person as much as they can? Or are you in support of the mass vote by mail for this election?
I want people to vote in person, but that's not the situation that we have right now. And let me just take a step back. There is no reason why we can't vote safely in person, and people ought to be allowed to do that. We can social distance. We can do it over a period of time. We can find poll workers. Someone shared with me this morning a letter that they got from Morris County, said they've had tons of people offer to be poll workers, and they weren't sure she could be one. So we can do this, and we should allow people to do this because it's going to cost our state a lot of money. And frankly, I'm very concerned about the fraud that's going to occur. But if we're not able to, then I want to encourage everybody to, one, register to vote, and two, to vote. And when it comes in the mail, fill it out, send it in, or take it to a drop box. And that's what we need to encourage people to do. And we need to make it easy. And this is another thing that I worry so much about, because everywhere I go, there is so much confusion about how to vote by mail. And I honestly think that it can be eliminated by simply opening the polls, opening them up for an extended period of time. They do it in a lot of other places. So that's what I think the solutions are.
Thank you. Right.
And Montclair State University, the school that we go to, has been very much pushing that we should all be voting. Everyone should register. Everyone should vote. You agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And especially your generation. You should absolutely vote. This is about you guys and about your future. And I want you to vote.
And to go along with that, why should the college voter vote for you then? Because we have, historically, college campuses are pretty liberal and democratic place. But as a Republican, as um, a mother, how should they vote for you? Why should they vote for you, rather?
I think that this election is so much about your future. You know, we're at a fork in the road. You can go down the path of socialism, or you can go down the path of freedom and capitalism. And I vote for freedom and capitalism, and I vote for your future. I worry so much about the debt that we're potentially leaving your generation with. I think it is very important to help our businesses and help Americans through this pandemic. But at the same time, we've got to think about the future and think about how to pay it back and how to get the spending under control. Because I don't want to leave you or my kids, a ton of debt. And look, my track record here is what everyone should be paying attention to. I have always, fought for the next generation. My entire career and life has been about that, because I do very much believe in paying it forward, very much so. And I do care deeply about this generation. Whether it was running the program for disadvantaged youth or writing the 529, and I worked, even after I left Capitol Hill, I continued to work on those 529s for years and years, because I honestly knew the difference that it could make in the lives of families. I want you and your kids and my daughter and everyone to have less burden on them, so that you can focus on the future. And I mean, the world is your oyster. And so that's what I want for you guys.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you guys joining us today. So we're going to unfortunately have to wrap it up. But if people are interested in your platform and policies, where can they reach you if they have any questions or want to just learn more?
So you can reach me several ways. You can reach us on Facebook, and it's Rosemary Becchi for Congress. You can reach us on Twitter as well, and Instagram. But you can also reach me directly at rosemary@beckiforcongress.com, because I answer every email. I talk to everyone. I am always accessible. And if you're interested, or anyone is interested in coming and volunteering and get involved in the campaign, we have an incredible amount of college kids and high school kids that are volunteering and helping on the campaign, and we would love your help.
Thank you so much for your time today. We really do appreciate it. So that was Ms. Rosemary Becchi, who is running as a Republican in New Jersey's 11th district. Thank you so much for your time.
90.3 WMSC, Upper Montclair.